This is 40K Today. 40K news that's harder to get rid of than a fully charged unit of Bullgrin. In cover.
Hello and welcome to another daily edition of the 40K Today podcast. I'm your host, John Damaris, and it's Tuesday the 18th, and we're going to talk about some truly amazing Eldar models. But first, we get an update from the Upside Down as the people behind Obsec tell us all about their experiences running events in 9th edition. But first, we got to hit up our poll question of the week. Are you happy with the change to Old Marines, giving them 2 runes like their Primaris battle brothers? Most of you seem to be happy with this change, with about 3/4 of you weighing in on the affirmative. If you want to weigh on this, get to our Facebook and let us know where you come down on this one. We are starting to see more and more events kick off as COVID wanes and people get a handle on how to run events safely. There have been events in Europe, the USA, and of course, from the land of the backwards running toilets, Australia. Emma and Mike, legitimate Warhammer heroes, mind you, have run several very good-sized events in 9th edition, and they come in and share what they've learned. Is going first the big advantage everyone seems to be melting down about? Let's find out. All right, folks, we're very lucky to be joined by people from all the way across the globe in the great country of Australia. We've got Emma and Mike from Obsec. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Perfect. And then you guys just ran a massive event over in Perth. Is that
That's so
Did I
funny.
do that right?
Well, no, because it's a 48-player event, so I think that's quite a small event. So,
I
but we ran
think-
an event.
In COVID times, though, isn't 48 players one of the biggest that's been run this year?
Well,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, we had
I mean-
it should have been 52. We had a couple of dropouts on the day, so
Yeah.
we ended up with 48 on the day, which is still pretty good.
Mhm.
I suppose technically correct, LVO was run in 2020, right? In January.
Yeah, but-
yeah, that's
still the
it.
biggest event.
There was-
Compare that to LVO.
It was 8th edition. It doesn't count anymore. So
Right, it doesn't exist, right? 8th edition just doesn't exist anymore. Okay, cool. So you guys are getting back in the swing. Obviously, COVID has been tamped down a little bit in your area, it sounds
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
And you guys are able to start running events. Is this one of the first 9th edition events that you guys have run?
So as of today, we've run 3. We ran a private event the day after 9th dropped, which was just for our patrons.
And that was a very small.
That was only
tester
8.
event,
That was only
so
8 players, and we still had
players.
some restrictions in place as well. So
Yeah.
we were allowed to get 8 people in a room and play some games that day, which was great. And then we ran 2 one-day events back to back on the 8th and 9th of August. Because we had a whole bunch of community members who wanted to come, but at the same time, some could only do one day and some could do Sunday. So we split it and we did 2 one-day events rather than 1 2-day event. So yeah, we're 130 games in terms of tournament data, which is great.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about what did you see? Did anything surprise you about the meta, or did you see anything that you were like, wow, that is really cool, something that doesn't resemble anything like something you'd see in 8th edition?
Well, I think that the kind of thing is that because it's a brand new edition, everyone was kind of going, well, how is this going to match the meta? Well, there isn't really a meta yet because we're so brand new. But we saw people coming out and trying a lot of new things. And
Yeah, there were
kind of having
units
a
on
play.
units on the table that you would never expect to see, certainly not in 8th edition. And I mean, we are still adapting our terrain to suit 9th edition to the best of our ability, and we've ordered some new terrain for our events. But we tried to make the tables as even as possible, and that led to some really close games. And the fact that after it's all said and done with all the data we have a 53% win rate for going first and a 47% going second. That's pretty indicative of how good this edition is going to be, where you're not going to get shot off the table if you've got the right amount of terrain on the board, which is really exciting.
So that's with 130 games of data, is that right?
Yeah.
So we got a 69 wins going first, 59 going second, and then we got 1 draw. We had
Well,
one.
that's
banger.
fantastic news, right? Because I mean, there's been a lot of doom and gloom, right? Where people are like, well, if you go first, you just automatically win. So
Yeah,
GG.
we do kind of talk about the Chicken Little syndrome, that whenever there is any change, it goes straight to the doom and gloom. But we're trying to focus on let's wait and let's see how it actually goes and see how it pans out before we start panicking. And the results have been that, yeah, really going first, going second isn't having the kind of impact that we've heard about or that people were worried about.
No, like 53% win rate for going first compared to 47 going second is
It's pretty close to
inconsequential at
even.
that point.
Yeah.
Like it might as well just be 50-50.
I mean,
and
that is 50-50.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So,
And-
like, whatever.
Well, the other good
Yeah.
thing for us as well is that we heard a lot in 8th edition that games weren't finishing on time. So we ran all these as the GT mission pack. They were 3-hour rounds and GT missions. And out of all those games, 107 of them finished 5 turns. So we had an 83% completion rate without chess clocks, without any sort of timing other than the round timer, obviously. We're getting over 80% completion rate in 5 turns.
For a brand new game.
Yeah,
that
like 2
for-
weeks in.
For quite a few of the people in the room, this was the first time that they'd kind of played it, really. So that's really gives us a good indication
Yeah.
that this is going to be games that are going to finish as well.
Do you think that with chess clocks we could get those round times down to like 2.5 hours or 2 hours? Because that would change the landscape.
I think there's an opportunity to at least knock 15 minutes off sometime in the next 6 months. I don't know that we're
Yeah.
going to be able to do it. Obviously, COVID changes the landscape as well as
Yeah.
people sort of get back into playing regularly. But the game on the weekend, the tournament I played in on the weekend just now, I finished all 3 games in under 3 hours, and 2 of them were about 2.5 hours. So there's always going to be outliers to that where people who are naturally slower at playing will
Yeah.
take longer, but I definitely think we could get it down to 2:45 and maybe 2:30 in time.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of introducing death clocks, but I think that I wonder whether or not that would actually be necessary, or it will just come that as people get more proficient with using it and get more used to this edition, we're actually naturally going to see those times come down anyway. So that's my prediction for what we're going to see.
Yeah, because right now I suppose too we're seeing there's a lot of factors that lead to that, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of new units on the board that people are like, well, what does that do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
There's
it.
a lot of new like, well, I need to look in the mission pack. What were the secondaries we can take for this one? Like there's going to be a lot of just time, because there's no muscle memory for
Yeah,
the
and
game right
even
now.
it's like, putting out the objectives. I think that once people have practiced that, that's going to come a lot faster.
I think the pre-game, though, the fact that you're now declaring warlord traits, psychic powers, relics, all those sort of variables that you would have to do in the last edition of the game, you're not really doing anymore. It's all kind of part of the army list. The flip side is now, though, that because the objectives aren't randomly placed, at least for our events, we used to follow a sort of ETC style format for missions. Because they're now fixed objectives, our players are getting used to where those objectives have to go. And then we just started playing some ITC here in Western Australia, and then now we've got the GT mission pack, so the objectives are placed differently. And I found on the weekend that probably took 10 to 15 minutes of just picking secondaries, deploying the objectives correctly, shuffling any terrain that needs to be, because obviously the objectives can't be placed in certain positions. So there was a lot of those sorts of factors that slowed the start of the game down.
Yeah.
But after turn 2, a lot of the games kind of picked up the pace really quickly.
Perfect. So last question.
Shoot.
What was the player base's overall impression of 9th edition?
I think it's been really positive, to be honest.
Yeah, and I probably hear that more than you do because I spend a lot of time at the bar selling the alcohol.
That's true.
So I get a lot more of their impressions than you do. You just get the complaints about the terrain. But overall, I think everyone's been really positive about 9th edition and what the changes have looked like and what the game feels like, and and how it's been really, a lot of those gaps have been pulled in nice and tight. So yeah, overall, everyone seems really positive about it.
Very cool. Thank you guys for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thanks for
having
having
us.
us.
If you ever find yourself near Perth, Australia, you should make it a point to go to an Obsec event. I promise you, it's worth your time. Next up on the program, Eldar flying on dinosaurs. You heard me right, folks. Today's episode of 40K Today is brought to you by Frontline Gaming. Frontline Gaming is a one-stop shop for all your Warhammer hobby needs, discounted products, American-made gaming mats and terrain, and a full line of miniatures painting service and daily hobby content. And this can all be found at frontlinegaming.org. Welcome back. One of my favorite parts of the show is getting to highlight people who truly do inspiring stuff in this little hobby of ours. My good friend Tomas from Belgium has made several armies that would blow your mind. He's really great at converting models into dynamic poses and always follows a super interesting theme. This week, we get to talk about his Sam Han army, who all ride on flying dinosaurs. All right, we are joined by a very special guest today, one of my oldest friends in hobbying, Tomas. Did I say that right, Tomas? Is it Tomas?
Almost. It's pronounced by everybody in a different way. It's Thomas, but
Tomas. Okay. Yeah. And Tomas is from Belgium. and has been a staple in the War Machine and Hordes community, and has recently started coming back to 40K. I think you might have been there at one point, and you're working on an amazing project with some Eldar. And for those of you, most of you don't know Tomas, but he has done some of the most incredible conversions in the War Machine and Horde space. He did a mechanized Legion army that garnered him a lot of fame in that community. And him moving into Eldar, I just got really excited, so I wanted to talk to you about it. Tomas, introduce yourself. Say hi to everyone.
Hello, everybody. I've got a little to introduce myself after what you just said. So, like you said, I've been wargaming for ages now. I think this year I'm celebrating my 25th year of wargaming. Originally started in, I think, a long time ago, 25 years ago, started with Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and then got pretty quickly into 40K. I think at the beginning of third edition, the switch from second edition to third edition, something like that. Always played the game, loved playing the game, and then I got sidetracked to stuff like War Machine and other gaming systems, mainly because the guys that I was hanging with and the guys that I was playing with were playing that. And these days, I started listening to a podcast called something like 40K Today or something like that, that a dear old friend of mine was starting on. And yeah, you got me hyped so much that I thought, well, let's get back into this game. It's all your man.
I'm glad, because I think people will be surprised. So one of the things that I love about what you do is you always take it to an extreme with your hobbying. And what I mean by that is you don't just like combine bits or whatever. You are cutting out plastic card, sculpting stuff. And I remember your mechanized Legion army was beautiful because it was so dynamic, and it was all on like rooftops, and it was just really, really cool. Like it looked like this army had come in and was going from rooftop to rooftop. And it created quite a dynamic scene when you laid it all out for people. So tell us about your Eldar project. What is the inspiration, and what are you doing with it?
Well, every project I start with an idea. I think it's the most important thing about converting, because I'm mainly a converter. I paint my miniatures because I want to paint, well, because they have to be painted, but the joy for me comes from converting everything. And for the Eldar, for the longest time, well, I've always been a fan of anything that is on bikes. Any army that is on bikes, I love that. Cavalry armies. And I've always been a fan of Eldar, and I've always been a fan of the Exodites, because you always look for the strange things in the army. So I'm making an Exodite Saim Han army, which means that usually they are on dinosaurs, they're riding dinosaurs. And I thought, well, let's flip that upside down and let's make them ride flying dinosaurs. So it's a bit of Avatar, it's a bit of Eldar mixed all together. And I'm very lucky that Games Workshop do some nice pterodons for what's it called? Age of Sigmar. For the Lizardman army, so it's a nice fit. You can. I had this idea in my head, and it always starts with that. You have an idea in your head, and in the end, you end up buying a couple of boxes, and you see if it works once you try it out.
Yeah, and well, I see the pictures and it works, and we'll definitely post pictures on our social, because people just have to see these models. They're so dynamic. They're really, really cool. What has been your favorite part of doing this project so far?
I like what I like the best is actually the first models that you do, because you're figuring it out while you're doing it. You're just cutting up stuff, you're gluing it together, seeing if it works, adding some green stuff, taking some bits off. I always say the same thing, that when you start on a project, it's not that hard converting stuff. You just take something, and then if you want something extra on it, you put it on there. If you want something gone, you cut it off. And everything you cut off, you can glue back on afterwards. And everything you put on there, you can cut it off afterwards. So it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. You just start working on it until you've got something that you like. And as long as you don't like it, then you just keep on cutting and keep on adding to it until you get something that you like. What I especially like about these models is the poses. I really try to make them as dynamic as possible, and to have the Eldar on the Eldar on top of the animals, really trying to control them. So I love the um, juxtaposition is a word in English, right? The juxtaposition between the flying monster that is like really chaotic, and then the Eldar that is really controlled, sitting on top of it. So it's the sleek design of the Eldar combined with the really wild nature of the monsters. I really like doing that.
It's really cool. It is a really, really, really cool effect. I look forward to seeing more of the army. We'll check in with you in the future as you get more done, but we're going to post these pictures and hope that other people get inspired to do something cool, because that's how where I'd put this. This is in the category of the rule of cool. It's definitely cool.
Thank you. It's the main reason why I do stuff, to keep people get people inspired. Like you said, from my War Machine days, the reason why I started with that army is because I thought that people were not doing enough conversions, and I thought that let's try something completely different and see if it catches on.
You definitely inspired a lot of people. Thanks, Tomas.
Thank you very much. See you later, mate.
Look, you have to see these to believe it. Make sure you check out our Facebook for pics. We're going to post a bunch there. Okay, who's ready for the catchiest jingle in 40K?
It's the model of the day, the model of the day, the model of the day.
Today's model of the day was submitted through our 40K Today hashtag on Instagram. It's a converted Space Wolf Judicar, and wow, I love this model. It's a custom job with an absolutely stunning wolf, super cool top knots, and I want to know where he found the axe. It looks menacing. The color palette is very well executed with exceptionally well done yellow accents, and the armor looks great. The piece de resistance, though, is the frost axe. I love the blue hues on this thing, and it looks like it is cold to the touch. Now, if you have a model that you think we should feature on the show, or you've seen a model that should be featured on the show, let us know with our hashtag on Instagram, hashtag 40K, the number 2, today, or just toss us a message on Facebook. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. A big thanks to our content producer, Alex Boehner, and our social media superstar, Tanya Gates. And of course, how could we forget our technical producer, Seamus Ronan, for all their hard work once again in putting this program together. We'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, for Steve Joel and Paul Murphy, I'm John Damaris, and that's what's happening in 40K Today.